Welcome to the NFL Coast to Coast podcast. We are back, baby. Week 1, Nate and myself, we are recording these videos for you every single week moving forward throughout this NFL season. We're each going to be bringing you 3 play-up props, so definitely want to make sure to subscribe to that page and continue to follow along. Also, like the video if you would. We are going to be doing some giveaways this year as well, trying to get you guys involved in all the picks that we're making, so definitely want to continue to follow along. Nate, I don't have much more else for it. We're going to be skipping the Thursday and Friday games here as we get these out for mostly Sunday with some Monday night stuff out there for everybody. So let's jump into what you've got here and start with some Sunday stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I like Kyler Murray to have a good season here, starting off with week 1 at Buffalo, and over 228.5 is a relatively low passing yard total for a guy who was at the helm of a rapidly improving offense down the stretch last year under new OC Drew Petzing. Now he has an entire offseason to work with the guy, figure things out more, and he has the most hyped rookie in like 10, 15 years in terms of being a wide receiver. Marvin Harrison Jr. I think there'll be a lot of quick hitters. I think there'll be a lot of opportunities to get those quick hitters out against the Bills defense that has good corners, but is vulnerable in the middle and lost Matt Milano once again. Like all their linebackers and safeties graded out around 60, even below last year. This Bills defense is about average, maybe a little below average at this stage. And Arizona's defense, maybe more importantly, is terrible, is maybe the worst defense in the league. So that's why we love Kyler Murray as like a fantasy option, as a prop option, because he should be in a negative game script. I think that's how he gets here, gets over this total. I think that might be how the Cardinals get in the back door here. I think that's why a lot of people are taking that number now up to +7 in some spots, because like I don't think the Bills can close the door the way that they used to, and it's going to be pretty nice weather here in September. Maybe a tiny bit of rain and wind, but nothing like we see down the stretch. In Buffalo, we got a 48 total. So I think everything kind of lines up for the Cardinals to just be pass heavy in catch-up mode, and for Murray to just kind of pile up those yards on quick hitting options.
We're in total unison here. Like down to the game script, I do think that this is a game that maybe Kyler goes into the fourth quarter with like a $160, $170, maybe something not very good numbers, and then really does what he does, which is just extend plays, do things on the fly, become really, really good out of the pocket, as we know. And I can see that being the game flow here in the fourth quarter. I will throw out a lean that I had, and I didn't play it, and I doubt I will, which was James Conner to go over 12.5 rushing attempts. That was my only look at that game specifically. I like it because, I mean, I think as long as he's healthy, he's going to continue to be close to 18 to 20 carries a game. And, in this one, if you think it's going to be close, but that was my thing, is that when I started looking, I was like, I could see this not being that close in the beginning. Then Kyler and company start to make waves with that really incredible passing game. I don't really want to have to rely on James Conner to keep them in the game early when I don't know that their defense is just putrid, just absolutely terrible. And if they're giving up touchdowns on consistent drives, then yeah, that would be something that would screw the James Conner pick. But I like Kyler to do his thing in this one. And I would also say that for as far as like covering this game, I'm going to be playing some live stuff for this one to see how it goes in the first half and then kind of go from there. But my first pick is going to be a guy that we talked about a lot last season, Nate, and that's Bijan Robinson. And I'm going to take him for the receiving yards in this game. I'm going to take him 25 plus on DraftKings as -120. I'm also going to do a little ladder here for quarter unit at plus 225 on DraftKings for him to get 40 plus yards. So just looking at the receiving yards in general, he was at this number in 10 of 16 games when he had at least 11 plus snaps. And that's what this really comes down to, is thank the Lord, if you did draft Bijan in your fantasy league, you don't have to deal with Arthur Smith anymore and wondering what's going on. And if you drafted Kyle Pitts, you don't have to wonder if Jonnu Smith is going to be the number 1 tight end. So there's going to be a little bit more stability now in Atlanta. And when you look at Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator coming in, I think he's going to have a big part to play in Bijan being a lot more involved in the pass game as well. Last season, he was 2nd in targets among running backs and 6th in receptions overall was Bijan. And like I said, that was with really limited usage overall and limited snap share there, where he was really splitting it a lot more with Tyler Algier. Not sure how you could justify doing that this season, especially when Zach Robinson runs a ton of one running back sets, which is what we're going to see a lot of this year, right? He runs a lot of one running back, one tight end, three receivers. And that does allow for a lot more receptions from out of the backfield. If guys are flying out with the wide receivers, you have a lot more, the cornerbacks are really having to focus on the wide receivers. The nickel is not there to really bother Bijan at all. So I think the game script is going to work for him well because of the personnel packages. Then you look at Kirk Cousins, never been afraid to throw to a running back. Dalvin Cook was an incredible receiving running back for him. And in his first 3 seasons with Cousins, 27.7, 37.1, and 25.8 receiving yards per game averages for Dalvin in all 3 of those seasons. So I can see Kirk really doing the same kind of stuff here, relying I think he's going to spread the ball out downfield. I don't want to say that Kirk Cousins is someone that only lives with those short throws. He can throw it out and to the corners and to the sides and everything. But overall, like I do think he's going to love having Bijan Robinson out there to get him those yards. And then the last thing here is like this Pitt defense is going to be nice. It's going to be a very good pass rush. Cousins might find himself, I'm predicting he's going to find himself under pressure very consistently between Highsmith and Watt, as we know. Now they've got Patrick McQueen in there. And I will say as well, Patrick McQueen, when he was on Baltimore, they gave up a good amount of receptions to running backs like last year. They were in the bottom 10 in terms of allowing receptions to running back. I'm not going to give that totally to Queen and just say that's entirely on him, but having him as the middle linebacker there, the guy who is heavily responsible for guarding the middle of the field when Bijan does run out into the middle and stuff like that, we should see his ability to get some yards tomorrow.
Patrick Steve McQueen, yeah, I mean, a little bit of an overrated linebacker coming over there. I think maybe that's the area that Pittsburgh is vulnerable, the only area. Like their secondary and their edge rushers are so damn good that, yeah, I mean, Cousins, he's going to try to push the ball down the field, but it's not going to be there that often. So you love the idea that Bijan, even under Arthur Smith, was lining up as a wide receiver so often, right? I mean, it's just kind of a different type of value for a running back that he doesn't necessarily have to run it out of the backfield. They're like, no, we think you can line up anywhere. And we trust Tyler Algier to be in that backfield too, so that all of a sudden, like, Bijan's your slot guy. So I think targeting his receiving makes a lot of sense in this first one, especially as Cousins tries to get his feet under him here. But not loving the debut number for Caleb Williams at bet up from 236 to 245 at some places. I will take the under against the Titans team that might be a little underrated. I mean, we know the Bears might be a little overrated or overhyped because they are the Hard Knocks curse here coming into the season. And Caleb in particular has been acting like he's not scared of nobody. But I mean, you're about to see actual NFL regular season pressure. Like you're not going to be just like running around like it's the preseason and getting your throws off. Like, the Titans should be able to generate some good pressure, but their secondary should be very good here based on the pieces they've added. Like, as long as the coaching is up to snuff, added Awuzie, L'Jarius Sneed, maybe one of the best lockdown corners in the league last year. I mean, granted, playing in that Chiefs defense, but I think he gave up 1 or 0 touchdowns in his coverage all year. Ernest Jones graded out as the 8th best linebacker in the league, and they added him as well. And it's kind of a reverse of what we used to see with the Titans, where like their secondary was so god awful, you couldn't run on them at all. But now they don't have Tyre Tart. They basically don't have any good run stoppers outside of Simmons. So it's kind of a situation where the Bears should be able to run the ball, get some easier, higher percentage looks for Caleb Williams, get him acclimated here in his debut. And that might not lead to a ton of yardage, despite the fact that he does have some weapons there. I mean, it could just be a lot of short throws to Keenan Allen. Like, I actually think Keenan Allen's props individually are kind of low, despite the fact that I don't think Caleb's going to go for 250 here. When he was pressured last year, 39 passer rating, 16 turnover worthy plays per PFF. Looking at him in college there, and yeah, rookies have not won in their season debut. I think since 2002 is the stat, and they're 0-7-1 in the last 5 seasons in particular. So I mean, Titans +4 looks tasty, but if you're looking at props here in particular, like I think we can fade Caleb Williams.
Yeah, it's not something I'm going to be betting this week. I'm really laying off most rookies in any capacity here. I actually bet Bijan week one last year as well. I was looking back at the notes. That was the only rook that I really felt comfortable with in week one. And I actually think we got screwed in that game as well by Arthur Smith. But more importantly for this one, yeah, for the rook for Caleb Williams, I think he's going to have a good season. I've got him as rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year this year. I think he just with the weapons around him and being that quarterback, he'll have the opportunity. This might not be the best scenario for him, especially with, to your point, this Titans secondary just got a lot better at coverage and is still going to be pretty weak up front, which is crazy to think about. 3 years ago, 2 years ago, Titans, one of the best run defenses, best running games. Now we're going to be looking at them still probably going to be pretty good at running the ball, but that run defense has taken a big shot over the last couple of seasons with the losses of some key players. So second bet here for me is going to be another over, and I think you can actually get a better number on this. I took Christian Watson over 38.5 yards. I believe there's a 37.5 hanging out there still, but either way, I think for him to get 40 plus is a good bet in this game. A lot of speculation about the Packers and their receiving group, right? Like so many names: Dobbs, Wicks, Reed, and who's expected to be the best is Christian Watson. He's got the biggest name in terms of expectations and highest pick and all that kind of stuff. The key thing for Watson is he playing with Jordan Love, and is he healthy? And not in that order. It's is he healthy and is he playing with Jordan Love? And if that's the case, then I feel really good about this. We're talking about him going up against Philly, so there probably is going to be some negative game script. I don't really know what to make of Philly yet. I'm still pretty high on Philly this year, but they did allow the second most yards through the air last season. And although they addressed those issues in the draft a little bit, it's not enough to just like take this from bottom three team pass defense in the league to anywhere into the top half of the league, I would surmise at this point. Now, the pass rush could be there for them, but I do believe in this Packers offense enough this season. And I think when you look at Christian Watson, he played 9 games last year, only went over in 3 of those 9 games. So I do love this number. Now, in those 9 games, he still averaged 46.5 yards per game. But I'm also just mostly focused on how he ended the season. And I do believe in that sort of momentum carrying over, because it's not just random momentum. It's the Packers with an established good offense, Jordan Love coming into his own by the end of last season, and this team making the playoffs again, because that's what Matt LaFleur does. And if you look at the last 2 games of the season, 16 targets, 83 yards receiving. There was 94 and 71 yards in each of those games. And I just, the amount of volume and targets, the amount of time that he's going to be on the field, I think it's just, he's clear wide receiver number 1. He's the X at this point. And if he's going to continue to be that, then you've got Reed and Wicks who are going to be very effective. And you've got Dobbs also probably on the outside, on the other side, and he'll get his fair share of targets. But at the same time, this is going to be a team that does, I think, feel very comfortable passing the ball. They do appreciate Josh Jacobs being out there as well if they need sort of a safety blanket, very good receiving running back. Just allows them to sort of pass the ball a lot more consistently. I think you're going to see a very heavy pass game script for them moving forward, especially in this game in week 1 against a really bad pass defense.
Now, this is in Brazil on Friday,
Sure.
so that is certainly a bit of an X factor. I mean, I would think it's an alt situation where, I mean, he could easily get 60 here if he is entering the season 100% after being just hobbling around basically the entire latter half of last year. He could be the alpha in this offense for sure. Philly could continue to struggle on the boundary. I think Jordan Love's going to be putting up a ton of pass attempts regardless. Maybe you just want to target Love's attempts because there are a lot of mouths to feed. I say this should be, but there's just so many options for the Packers in terms of their passing game, and maybe they feel like Philly a little more vulnerable on the interior again on passes over the middle of the field. Maybe they feel like this is better suited for Reed or Dobbs or Wicks or something. But I mean, it's a pretty low number. So I see where your head's at there. If you want to bet that international game. Last pick for me, I like Travis Etienne, and anytime touchdown is plus 120. And I like the receiving too. You can probably get even money if you go up to 20 receiving yards, 18.5 some spots. Look, this game down in Miami, expected to be some rain, probably some storms coming in and out. Trevor Lawrence has had trouble with ball security for sure. I mean, regardless, he just looks at ETN as a security blanket, right? Week 1 last year, as he's trying to get acclimated to a new system, he goes 5,104 receiving. ETN does on 77% route participation. Look, his role is almost as secure as anybody. Tank Bigsby is not really a thing in terms of stealing his goal line work. At least it wasn't last year. Maybe he'll get one opportunity in this game, but like Etienne's going to get his chances. He had 42 red zone touches last year, third among running backs in weighted opportunities. He had 2 catches, and he is in now 21 straight games. He has at least 2 catches and averaged well north of this 20 yards per game receiving. This Jaguars offensive line might be a little bit better, but I think more importantly, like the Dolphins front 7 is going to be worse. Van Ginkel, one of their better coverage linebackers, gone. Christian Wilkins, as we know, gone. And then they brought in Tyre Tart and just dropped him because he didn't fit the scheme for whatever reason. So now you got 38-year-old Calais Campbell as maybe their best like edge setter here. I think Etienne can get around him when he needs to. This is a defense that already finished 26th in red zone percentage allowed last year. And they bring in Anthony Weaver, whose only experience was leading Houston to the worst yardage allowed in the league in 2020 as a DC. That's probably a big downgrade from Vic Fangio, who made a little bit of lemonade out of those lemons on the Dolphins roster last year.
Yeah, he certainly did. I do like this. I think Etienne, there might be a little bit of a backtrack for him, but if anything, it's going to be right around what he did last year is my prediction for him. I think that Jags offense only has up to go, to be honest. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was terrible last season, probably playing very, very hurt. But I think he knows how important Travis Etienne is. There's no way you don't. And like, this is a dude that I feel like sharps have just continued to try to fade last year. And we're sort of projecting bad numbers for him. And he was like, you guys don't seem to get it. I'm a top 5 running back in the league, regardless of what's going on. I would say that offensive line for the Jags wasn't bad last year by any means, but it certainly wasn't like world beaters either. And he still managed to do all that stuff. So my boy Mitch Morse for sure coming in there, University of Missouri, shout him out. He's always had good running games wherever he's been, including in Buffalo. So let's go ahead and close it out with Davante Adams. And if you haven't seen the clip of Davante Adams responding to the Los Angeles Chargers social media team, I highly recommend watching that for incredible entertainment value. He's like, they came at me and they came out at the beginning of the season with this like social media thing where they were like, Davante Adams is trash. And he's like, it's just so weird to me. He's like, I've been averaging like a touchdown a game on like $120 receiving, and they want to tell me that I'm trash. And he just doesn't seem very happy about that. So that's number one. Number two is we got Minshew. We got Gardner now. We got a quarterback that I at least trust to get his best receiver the ball, a la Michael Pittman Jr. last year, who came on pretty strong after AR went down and was Minshew's favorite target, clearly. I think that's going to be the same case here. He's just going to get peppered with targets. If you look at his numbers versus the Chargers, 4 games with the Raiders, all in Vegas, obviously, 8.5 receptions per game, 13.5 targets, 123.5 receiving yards, and 4 tutties. So 3 of the 4 games he's gotten a tutty, had a 2 touchdown game in there as well. And I just don't I mean, the Chargers have an incredible social media team. I will say that. Just a poor decision for week 1. For the Chargers defense against Adams, like they've obviously had their struggles in the secondary here, and I still don't know that there's a cover guy for the Chargers that you would feel comfortable putting on Adams one-on-one. He might see a couple of extra defenders here and there. I just think that even when he gets those catches inside of 10 to 15 yards and doesn't necessarily need to rely on the long ball, he's still going to be really good to get the yards. So the yards after catch specifically. I'm getting him over 72.5 receiving yards. I did miss that number. It was a lot lower and has been bet up. It was like 60.5 at one or 62.5 at one point. It's gone up about 10 yards, but the anytime touchdown also feels great for him. It's plus 190 on DraftKings. That did get nuked. It was at about plus 400 all the way down to plus 190. I still think it was plus 450. And I'm pretty confident that news story where they actually did interview him was the culprit for just tanking that number. So you're only getting it at 2-1 now. 4-1 was just absolute beauty. And I put this out online as well yesterday on Twitter saying like, look, like I'm not going to ruin any numbers here because it already went from 4-1 to 2-1. I'm still good with it at 2-1. I mean, look, you gotta get 2-1 to get Ohtani to get a home run these days. It's going to be 2-1 for really good receivers to get and running backs to get touchdowns. 2-1 is going to be a really good number for a lot of guys on the ATTD this year, but I'm still going to go with it for Adams in week 1 here.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a popular fade, at least in terms of talking kind of coming into the season, like, oh my God, their quarterbacks are so bad. But I mean, yeah, first of all, Minshew is much better than Aiden O'Connell. Like, he's a serviceable quarterback. We've seen Davante Adams go for like 200 yards with Jared Stidham. Like, he is he is the most quarterback friendly guy out there. I mean, he's 31, but he still just shakes dudes so open. He gets himself so freaking open that like anybody can make those throws. So the idea of fading him over the course of a season to me seems kind of silly. It's like based on this narrative that the Raiders are going to tank and that they're going to trade him or make up an injury. Like, no, he's a pro. He's going to be out there. So I actually put in on the lines.com today that I found the season long bet for him to get 7 touchdowns on the season plus 100. Like, I think that is easy money. That is a good lock right there, whether he winds up on a different team or not. Like, such a quarterback friendly player and honestly just one of the most creative and elusive route runners there is. So, I mean, not a terribly scary matchup here in week 1. I like taking a stab here at the touchdown in week 1 too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm with it. Yeah, the touchdown for sure. And that is all the time we have in week 1 here. Thanks for hanging on while I sweat through some sickness as well throughout this video. I will say we're coming back every week as well. Want to make sure you are subscribed to that page. Going to be doing some giveaways like I mentioned, so definitely stay tuned for that. Jump in the comments as well. Let us know who you guys are betting on. Really interested to see. Want to give a little bit. Don't just take all the time. Maybe help us out with a couple bets. And we'll be back next week. So until we see you then, happy betting.